are here until we liberate the state of California from their socialist leaders. Again, liberate California from their socialist governor and mayor. He specifically said the mayor and governor. She's calling for regime change. That's what got Padilla to yell out, I'm a senator, I got a question, why do you have to be so, he said, exaggerate so much. Tom, this is regime change. Liberate is George Bush used in terms of Iraq, Operation, Iraqi freedom. You don't want to go to jail for this. Although I have to be honest, Trump has gutted IRS, so I don't know how well they can enforce it, but I would want a legal approach to it. The blue states are the ones that fund the federal government. We all know this. And the idea that we're going to be complicit in Donald Trump's authoritarian fascist dreams is outrageous to me.
Our old buddy Dean Obeidallah, the host, my friend and colleague, the host of the Dean Obeidallah Show, weekdays 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Sirius XM Progress Channel 127, is on the line with us. One of my favorite newsletters, in fact, I'd put it in my top 5 of all the Substack newsletters that I get, is the Dean's Report, is Dean Obeidallah's newsletter. If you don't subscribe to it, you need to get over to Substack.com and just plug in Dean's Report, and it'll pop right up, and it's free, and it just comes into your inbox. And Dean has really been pushing some boundaries here, making some noise recently. Dean, welcome back to the program. Great to have you with us again.
Thanks, Tom. My dream is to be your #1 newsletter, to be even more of a favorite than your own newsletter. I'm going to read Dean's before even mine. I read yours every day, and this is sincere because Tom knows this. I've told him this. But I read your one today on hate. I read them every day. I find it makes me smarter. Well, so I appreciate you a great deal.
Thank you. I want to go back to one from a week or so ago, actually. You were suggesting that blue states should legally withhold their income taxes or taxes from the federal government. This is after Gavin Newsom pointed out that California sends $80 billion a year more to the federal government than they get back. And, where does that money end up? In Alabama, of course. Any progress on this? You're an attorney and you're a smart guy politically. Is there any way to make that happen that's within the law?
I'm personally not paying my taxes, Tom. I'm leading the boycott. Now, the reason I raised this, I don't think I'm the first person to raise this when Trump was in the office the first time. Gavin Newsom actually raised it on the Friday before all the National Guard stuff went down because Trump was talking about freezing federal aid to California. And he said, we give you $80 billion more. So we're going to look into, can we withhold the aid from the federal government? Then the whole immigration issues came up and the military in the streets and all that, and it got lost. To me, I agree with Gavin Newsom. I hope there's a legal way to investigate. Does the state pay a certain amount? Individuals, we're the bulk of the payments. Is there a way that the state can create a trust where we pay our federal income tax obligations directly to the state, so they're still paying it to a sovereign entity, and then that state pays it to the federal government, and that we don't get held or liable from a criminal point of view for not paying our taxes? But it has to be a legal way of doing it. You don't want to go to jail for this. Although I have to be honest, Trump has gutted IRS, so I don't know how well they can enforce it, but I would want a legal approach to it. The blue states are the ones that fund the federal government. We all know this. And the idea that we're going to be complicit in Donald Trump's authoritarian fascist dreams is outrageous to me. And I actually view that we are complicit by funding a war on the blue states by Donald Trump. So I really hope they explore it. I truly hope they explore it, sincerely, not as a BS political talking point. Is there a legal way to do that?
Yeah. And so the answer right now is that you don't know.
The answer right now, I can't see a way right now offhand. It's not something you get taught in law school. There's no client that ever came to me when I was a lawyer and said, hey, I don't want to pay my taxes. What can we do? I'm like, I got a plan for you. That's not how it works.
Well, I knew
need the AGs of the states to come up with a legal plan to do this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I knew tax protesters back in the 60s, and I knew one who went to jail. So don't withhold your taxes.
We want a legal way to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Another one of your great Dean's Report newsletters, why is Kristi Noem's bone-chilling pledge of a regime change in California not getting more media coverage? This blows my mind, too. I mean, the whole thing of Alex Padilla being thrown to the ground is all over the internet. But nobody in the media outside of Ali Velshi, really, he and Rachel Maddow are kind of the two lights over on MSNBC. But pretty much everybody else, you know, they want to talk about the kind of inside baseball politics of it and, you know, the outrage of it. But nobody is pointing out what provoked Padilla to say, what the hell, basically. I have a question.
Absolutely true. Her words were bone-chilling. Alex Padilla, the senator, was in the room. He said by his own statements, about 5 or 10 minutes. He didn't interrupt anything. He interrupted Kristi Noem because she said, we are here until we liberate the state of California from their socialist leaders. Again, liberate California from their socialist governor and mayor. He specifically said the mayor and governor. She's calling for regime change. That's what got Padilla to yell out, I'm a senator, I got a question, why do you have to be so, he said, exaggerate so much. Tom, this is regime change. Liberate is George Bush used in terms of Iraq, Operation, Iraqi freedom. You had
it was
Putin
actually originally, if you recall, Dean, it was originally Operation Iraqi Liberation. And then somebody in the media pointed out that the acronym spells OIL, and that's when they changed it to Iraqi freedom.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it lasted for about 24 hours. OIL. That's
very interesting. And Vladimir Putin has talked about liberating Ukraine from the control of the Nazis. Well, Kristi Noem was giving a speech behind, it wasn't like throwing it around. She was giving a speech. It seemed like a prepared speech, saying that they asked, how long are you going to remain here with the military? She said, the military will remain here until we liberate California from their socialist governor and mayor. That is a declaration of war. That is another reason to withhold blue state money to this regime. And by the way, last night didn't get much press. They officially asked for 2,000 more National Guard troops in California, and everything is calm there. They're building more of a military presence in California. What's the ultimate goal? We're not quite sure right now. But look, this is a military occupation of Los Angeles by the Trump regime using our blue state money.
Well, and now it's been announced that they're sending 700 troops to Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. I mean, it looks to me like Donald Trump is hell-bent for leather on basically ignoring posse comitatus and militarizing the United States. That this is step one toward declaring himself dictator for life.
And it's very, look, yesterday there was oral argument in the U.S. Court of Appeals on the decision by Judge Breyer saying that Trump can't do this. I haven't seen if the opinion came out today, but the oral argument was very in favor of came out very in favor of Donald Trump from what I read about it.
Yes.
And there was even a Democratic appointed judge. And here's the problem with the oral argument from what I read about it. The judges would say, since the 1800s, the president has gotten great leeway in calling out the National Guard. Yeah, but none of those presidents ever attempted a coup and incited a terrorist attack on our capital like Donald Trump, and convicted of felonies for cheating the 2016 election, and who was hell-bent on being a dictator. You can't apply the old judicial precedent to a man like Donald Trump. So when I read it, instantly I got what they were saying. But the two Trump appointees are on board with the takeover, or they're just applying old rules. The Democrat on that should have been calling this out for what it is. The old rules should not apply against Donald Trump. They can apply. So to me, it's gravely, gravely concerning. You're absolutely right. They can occupy. And Donald Trump declared war on the blue cities last week in writing.
Did you read Breyer's decision?
Yeah, I did. It was a great decision. I thought it was really great.
He nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. I'm astonished that I was wondering if they hadn't read his decision, although that would be pretty outside the mainstream, right?
I was going to cover it on my show, and then it got put on hold later that night or early in the morning. So by the time it got to that night, it was already on hold by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, so we didn't go through it. But there was some great, great language in there about a king, about what Trump wants to be, in the difference between a king and a democratically elected official. But Tom, to take a step back, yesterday I had on a he's retired FBI special assistant, Special Agent Frank Figluzzi, really good guy. He's been on a lot. And we discussed something that I've been deeply concerned about, the intentional use of heavy-handed approaches by Donald Trump. And yesterday was the arrest of Brad Lander here in New York City. We had Senator Padilla, the mayor of Newark, the member of Congress, McIver, the judge. And he said this heavy-handedness seems designed to elicit a response. And I think that's what Trump wants. Either one is they win and people self-censor and are silent, or two, there's a violent response, let's say, and he doesn't want that, but he could see that happening and building, and then Trump gets the permission to use the military even more so. And that's what's deeply concerning right now.
My personal take on this, Dean, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is that the reason that he has not invoked the Insurrection Act is he knows there will be an immediate pushback to it, although that pushback will take probably several months to go through any kind of judicial process. And that I think he's waiting for the next election, for the 2026 election, to invoke the Insurrection Act, and he's going to try to use it to suspend the election, or at least mess with it in ways that will work to the benefit of Republicans. But he's going to do it against that, up against that timeline, because if he does it too early, he can get shot down on it. What do you think?
Look, first of all, I think the Supreme Court will uphold any decision Trump makes using the Insurrection Act or invoking under Title X the National Guard coming out. So they will back him up 100%, and that's part of the problem. Second, look, everyone listening to your show, my show, we know Donald Trump will try to prevent the 2026 midterm election because Democrats are going to win the House back. We know that. We have to still prepare to win the election the right way and not be emotionally, distraught when he tries that. And we have to fight back, and the lawyers on our side have to be ready, and I'm sure they're going to be. But, there's something else, Tom, that, tonight I'm going to talk about on my show, the Battle of Algiers. And that's been sitting in my mind now for a while, where Trump wants reaction. And what he doesn't get is that I don't think he's thought through step three. Step three is if you have a violent reaction by people in America, and I'm against that, but if you do, they become even more heavy-handed. They use the troops even more against the people. Yes. Well, the Battle of Algiers is a movie, but a real story as well. It causes the masses of people to unite against the regime, and ultimately it topples the regime. At least that's what you hope. That's what happened ultimately for the independence of the Algerian people over the colonization of France. Right. So I don't think he's thought that through. He thinks he can just use the military and we're going to be silent. It's in our DNA as Americans to rebel against the king. And he doesn't get what it means to be an American. And that's part of the big problem that I think he has. He doesn't know what we're going to do in response. And no violence, but I'm saying it's going to happen. Americans should only push people so far.
Yeah, I totally get it. And the other problem that we have right now, Dean, and by the way, we're going to hit a break here in 10 seconds,
sure.
is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is worse than Trump. I mean, he wants the Trump administration to ignore the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and Secretary Hegseth just testified while your show was on, telling Senator Hirono he will disregard federal court opinions for district courts. And he said for the Supreme Court, we'll see what they have to say. The administration is, he literally testified to that while you were on air. Wow. He said, district court judge opinions don't matter. They should not be able to national policy. He says, we'll see what the Supreme Court says. We'll see what they have to say. And so it's a head-to-head. It's again, the Constitution doesn't matter.